All right, DI boxes, direct input. So it's DI, not die. Apparently, some people call it direct input, direct injection, direct interface. There's a whole bunch of different names that I found online. It allows you to convert a variety of different signal strengths and cable types into a common output for sending to a mixing board. So we plug our instruments into that, it switches it to XLR, and we go in. But what it actually is doing is there's a transformer in there, and it's stepping it down, going from that higher voltage, high impedance to a lower voltage, low impedance signal, and switching it from unbalanced to balanced, and sending it out XLR. And there's different sort of levels of it. Like I have a cheaper box here. It works, it does the exact same thing as the one that's up there. But like there's some benefits. This one is radial, sort of an industry standard. It's made in Quebec, I want to say. Some of the benefits compared to this one is like it's actually rolled 14 gauge steel. So you can drive a car over this thing and it won't break. If we open this one up, you'll probably see a couple of wires running to a transformer that's just sort of sitting in there, and then it's wired to the output, which is fine. These ones use like integrated circuit boards, so it's less chance of like a wire breaking off. They both do the same thing, and then it's just also like the quality of the transformer. So the benefits is it'll minimize your line noise, distortion. You can use it to remove a ground loop hum. So if you're getting that hum and you can't get rid of it by moving cables around, most of them have this ground pin lift. And what that does is it just disconnects the ground pin on the XLR cable. So then you're getting rid of a ground loop with that. The proper fix for that is fix your electrical, because that's a bigger like problem. And then you use that to send your signal over a longer cable. So yeah, any instrument with electronics or pickups that do not gain an XLR balanced output. So if you have a keyboard, generally it's 1/4 inch like this one. It goes into a DI and then into your sound system. Some keyboards have XLR outputs, and they've just basically done that inside of it. So you don't need the DI, you can just go XLR out of that because it's already balanced. So you run into two basic types of DI box. There's passive and active. Your passive unit is just that step up, step down transformer. They also work in the other way. You can go XLR to 1/4 inch. It doesn't care. It's just going to step it up one way, step it down the other way. And there's really no settings. You'll have a ground switch and a pad switch. Anyone know what the pad switch does? It makes it quieter. That's it. So if the signal you're coming in is way too hot, like you've turned the gain all the way to 0, or like all the way down, and it's still clipping, you can hit the pad switch. It just turns it down in the DI box. So if you're getting a really weak signal, that's always one of the first things I check is, did this accidentally get pushed in? And then the active units contain preamp, can control signal strength. Some include mini EQs, phase controls, bypass. That's some of them. So these two DI boxes are basically exactly the same, except this one is active. So the clue here is the 48. So the way to power this thing is with phantom power from the board, which sends 48 volt down the ground wire into the box. And then the only difference is there's a little red light here that'll light up to let you know that it has power. The sort of main way of thinking is, if you have passive pickups, use an active DI. If you have active pickups, use a passive DI. That's sort of the starting rule for it. I don't know. Maybe something to try. It might, but I doubt it. Yeah, there's usually some other electronics in there. Yeah. Now, like I said, this one is not a particularly fancy one. It's just that, again, you would sort of use it like I have a bass with passive pickups. I'm going to use this active DI to sort of give me a boost. This active DI is designed for acoustics. It has a EQ, there's a tuner in there, there's a bunch of stuff, electronics. We have a fancier one here. This is our bass DI. It's called a sans amp, and so sans as in no amp. It's an amp in a box type of thing. So I've got some EQ and drive controls, so we can run a bass without an amplifier and still sort of get an amp tone that we can adjust with these knobs. But you can run this on a 9-volt battery, or you can send phantom power from the mixer. There's a little button whether or not that'll work. So we use that for our bass. So with your active DIs, you can get they get crazy. You can do whatever you want with them. But generally, your passive DIs are just going to look like this. So no sound. Maybe you plugged it into the wrong end of it. Active DIs won't work without power. So make sure your phantom power is on or there's batteries in it, depending on how it runs. It's too quiet. If it's an active DI, you might have a volume or a gain knob. Make sure those are set properly. Or the pad switch is on. So just in this case, like this one, if I turn this on, it turns the signal down 15 dB. Some of them will do more than that too, though. Yeah, and this one doesn't have a pad switch. You can also run this off of like guitar pedal power as well. A hum, if you get a ground loop problem, you can flip that switch and it just disconnects. But that's usually, again, an indicator of a larger problem. This is just sort of a Band-Aid fix. So I have a hard time. Now we're getting to like electrical stuff, but that ground loop hum is generally, there's all your power is supposed to run to ground, but it's now easier for it to run along the ground cable between the instrument and the soundboard, and so it creates a loop there instead of actually running to ground. And that creates that hum, which is why it's in that like, it's a 60 hertz signal, so you're going to get that low frequency hum. And then, yeah, when you hit that button, you're just disconnecting that wire.
You can also get the ground hum when you're using different electrical outlets, different circuits.
Yeah, you have an imbalance. And
if you have a power speakers and everything,
yeah,
you want them on the same circuit
yeah.
as your board, or else you could get the ground.
Yeah, and I've heard that before. Like, if you're actually like building a new place, you generally want like your sound booth and your stage to all have its sort of its own system that has its own ground, and then sort of separated from the rest of the rest of your electrical stuff. And then, yeah, another way I've seen dealt with is like the plugs you'd have on stage. You can color code them. So pick a color that's audio, and then everything else plugs into the other color. So if you have lights on the stage, don't plug them into the audio system because they're really bad for creating that noise.